Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners Issues and Updates on April 9, 2024. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, what's up first?
Thank you, Chair Smith. All commissioners are present today. Chair, would you please convene as the Water Environment Services Board of Directors?
I will recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as Water Environment Services Board of Directors.
You are meeting now as the Water Environment Services Board of Directors. These are requests for consent agenda. Item 1, approval of an intergovernmental agreement with Clackamas River Water for the relocation of Clackamas River Water distribution mains. Total value is up to $43,098. Funding is through Water Environment Services Sanitary Sewer Construction Fund. No county general funds are involved. Greg Geist, Director of Water Environment Services. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Gary. Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. This is a IGA with Clackamas River Water. As you know, we are expanding our capacity from our Intertie 2 pump station up at Highway 224, Lowe's, CarMax area. We currently have a 20-inch line force main in the ground, and we're completing a project to put an additional 30-inch force main in the ground all the way from there to our facility in Oregon City. We need to move Clackamas River Water's infrastructure in about 4 different locations. Our contractor will do that work, but Clackamas River Water needs to oversee it, review engineering plans, do inspections, monitoring, things like that. So they will incur some expenses, so we are proposing an IGA to compensate them for that. It's $43,000. If they don't spend it all, we get whatever's left back. If it's more than that, then we will be back to explain why. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions or comments? See no objections. Evelyn Lawrence Minor, you're here. Do you want to discuss Wes?
She's for the next item, Chair.
Next item.
Oh, I see. So we're being efficient today.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you. Item 2, still on Wes, approval of the board order for implementation of the final offer for AFSCME Wes for represented employees. Total value is $96,289. Funding is through Water Environment Services ratepayer fees. No county general funds are involved. So Greg is here, and this is what Evelyn Minor Lawrence, Director of Human Resources, is here for this item. Go ahead, please.
We're happy to answer any questions that you have.
This is the one-time lump sum payment of $750 to the employees. That is what this is about.
Any comments or questions from commissioners? Seeing no objection. Oh, you,
Well, I'd
excuse
just
me.
like to say I appreciate the employees of WES and the time it's taken for them to work with us to arrive at this conclusion. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I just want to number one, express my appreciation. I know we're wearing the WES hat, so I'll speak there first to our employees at WES for all the great work that they do. And I certainly understand that the point I'm trying to make here today is that the Equal Pay Act, beyond our control, has really changed the method in which we work out issues and negotiations with our collective bargaining, with all of our unions and everything else like that. So when one particular bargain unit wants something unique, the Equal Pay Act basically essentially forces us to apply that to all of it. So we have to do those mathematical calculations, and in an effort to meet the intent of the Equal Pay Act, it complicates things. So this was what we have come up with, and I again just want to express my appreciation for our staff trying to negotiate this, and for all the WES employees for the great work that they do, and recognize the difficulties that we all have.
Thank you.
Commissioner West.
Just to piggyback on that a little bit, the Pay Equity Act treats all of these different independent groups as a giant collective. And kind of a big conglomerate. So like Commissioner Savas says, what happens to one trickles throughout the whole system. It happens for everybody, even if it isn't necessarily what the other group is asking for or wanting, even if it's not really even totally specific to the work that they do. It was maybe a well-intentioned piece of legislation passed in the legislature and signed by the previous governor, but it has had real ramifications that even the current governor has not quite foreseen, and even Chair Smith from this dais has talked about those conversations with Governor Kotek, even about the ability to hire staff to help meet the crisis around addiction and homelessness has been difficult because it hasn't even allowed us to pay them what a living wage. It has very much just said, if you belong in this box as a widget employee for the government, you are only allowed, you must be paid X as somebody else get paid X. It really takes out the need to tailor and to cater to the individual group, to be as fair as possible to that group, to be nuanced, and it really ties our hands, and that's unfortunate. And we do really appreciate the work of our government employees, especially at West, and they do a vital service for us. That's a critical piece of infrastructure that's very sophisticated that they manage. I wish we had the legal authority to maybe help them have something that is much more tailored to the specific work that they do. But unfortunately, our hands are tied by, once again, really bad legislation.
Thank you. Commissioner Schrader, would you like to speak?
I just wanted to mention to Water and Environment Services how much I appreciate the employees that work there, and that includes the management as well. I know that negotiations can always get a little sticky, but I'm glad that things have come to fruition and that we're moving ahead. Thanks for everything you do, Greg.
Thank you.
Yes, and this is additional monies that the board agreed to pay above the 4.5 COLA that the board agreed to last year. I believe the actual COLA rate is 4.1 now, Gary, correct?
That's projected for the upcoming fiscal year, yes.
So I think we have honored the fact that we have county employees performing very specific jobs that the public demands. So we're mindful of that. And this is, how many millions of dollars does this add at that 750, Gary?
If every employee is paid, it's approximately $2 million.
So another $2 million, just saying. And we're mindful of that going forward. So our bucket is going to be running dry pretty soon, just saying. So mindful going forward. We want to thank you for coming forward. We see no objections to this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair, would you now please convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board of Directors?
I will recess as a Water Environment Services and convene as a North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District.
You're now meeting as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board of Directors. This is an advisory board appointment. Tony, go ahead, please.
North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Budget Committee currently has 3 openings on the commission due to term expirations. Through a recruitment process, 6 applications were received, 3 are recommended for appointment. 2 of those applicants are new, and 1 is currently on the board. Recommendation is Luca Dorito to a 2nd term, David Chitsasan to a 1st term, and Sean Buchanan to a 1st term.
I'll entertain a motion.
Chair,
Mr. Savas.
last week you were absent and Commissioner Schrader was absent, and I brought this up, and no reflection on the people at all, but I did want to just apprise you why we deferred this to today. It was my effort to shine some light on the budgeting process, which has generated a lot more awareness of the financial predicament that NCPRD is in. And my experience with not just the last budget committee, but the budget committees prior not being as fully informed as they could have been or should have been. And the new director, Kia Selly, has made a proposal, is not here today, but she made a proposal to restructure how that process is. So I appreciate that, and I'm prepared to make a motion to approve the recommendation for the 3 people today.
Go ahead, Commissioner Savas.
So moved.
Commissioner Savas has moved that we appoint to the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Budget Committee the following: Luca Dorito, David Chitsazan, I don't know if I pronounced that right, sorry, and Sean Buchanan.
Seconded.
Commissioner Scholl has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? Tony, please take the poll.
Director West,
Aye.
Director Schrader,
Aye.
Director Shull,
Aye.
Director Savas,
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Gary.
Thank you. Chair, would you now please reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners?
I will recess as North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners.
We'll meet as the Board of County Commissioners for the rest of the agenda today. Next is request for consent agenda for the Board of County Commissioners. First, elected officials, the Sheriff's Office. Item 1, approval of an annual operating plan with the U.S. Forest Service for law enforcement services by the Clackamas County Sheriff's Office in the Mount Hood National Forest. Value is $64,973.08 for 1 year. Funding is through the U.S. Forest Service. No county general funds are involved. Nancy Artman, Finance Manager of the Sheriff's Office, and Sergeant Mendoza. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt. We come before you today for approval of the calendar year 2024 operating plan for patrols in the U.S. Forest Service. This agreement is intact through December 2027. This is the annual approval of funding to conduct those services. The only change this year is an inclusion of $6,000 to pay for a deputy to conduct a specialized training for Forest Service personnel.
Interesting. Questions or comments from Commissioner Schull?
Deputy Mendoza. On this contract, when you are patrolling the 273,000 acres of the Mount Hood National Forest, are you finding your communications are adequate while performing those patrols? Do you have your cell phone, radio?
So this is your first time buying a home?
This is a concern of mine.
Sure. How good are the communications while they're in the
In those
national
remote
forest?
areas?
They are, to my knowledge, they are adequate at this point. We have made some significant improvements. I'm not aware of any significant concerns at this point.
All right, thank you.
I apologize, colleagues. I was just pulling up an email and I pulled up something else.
Okay. We are on consent agenda items today, right now. Okay. Any further questions or comments? Seeing no objections, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, still with elected officials, the county clerk. Item 2, approval of a personal services contract with Send It Direct Mail and Fulfillment for ballot packet preparation and mail services. Contract value is $420,000 for 3.25 years. Funding is through recording fees and allocated costs, which does include a small portion of budgeted county general funds. Clerk Catherine McMullen and Justin. Oh, Justin, I forgot your last name. Elections Manager, Justin.
Larson.
Larson. Sorry, Justin. Go ahead, please.
Hello there. Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. I'm Catherine McMullen, and I'm our County Clerk, and I have Justin Larson here, our Elections Manager. And we're here to request approval of a personal services contract with Send It Direct Mail. This is an established vendor that we've used for many years, and we're strengthening our relationship with the vendor through a contract for 3.25 years with an estimated value of $420,000.
Commissioner Schull?
Yes, good morning. This contract with Send It Direct Mail and Fulfillment, Inc., are you working with them? This is a new relationship with that organization?
No, this is an established relationship.
is?
We went through a request for proposal process that we started in October, and this strengthens that relationship. This is the
Okay.
vendor that inserts ballots into our ballot packages after they've been printed.
Okay, I just want to make sure you've worked with them before. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner West?
Clerk, thank you for coming today. I have a couple questions that actually aren't related to this ask, but since you're before us, I'd love to have the opportunity to get your insight on them. I had a prominent
I have a question for you, Commissioner. Sorry. We are presenting on the May primary election next
Commissioner
week.
West will ask the question as an elected official. Thank you very much.
I'll proceed. So I had a prominent a Republican voter reach out to me, very well known in the community, has been voting in Clackamas County for over 20 years, has held elected office, and has helped many people register to vote and has been involved in the process, is very well versed in it. Her election, her ability to vote was disabled, and she has to go back before this next election and re-register. She was told her signature didn't match, even though she's been voting for 20 plus years, and I don't think she's ever missed an election. I'm just curious if anything in the process of like vetting voters has changed, or it just seems peculiar that this voter would be disabled in her voting record. It doesn't make a lot of sense, especially with how keen she is. She might be one of the most knowledgeable people in Clackamas County on how the whole process works. And I'm just curious if there has been a change in the process.
There hasn't. We continue to follow all state laws and our vote by mail manual. And we do work with voters one-on-one. And so I hope that we've had a conversation with this voter and solved any concern. And happy to do so if she hasn't reached out to us and she's listening today.
Would it be irregular that somebody that would, like this would have their file disabled?
So if someone's signature does not match, we inactivate the record and give them a chance to cure their ballot. And I think that's what you might mean when you say disabled. And so they get a letter, and then they also get that chance up to 21 days after Election Day to cure that signature. And so if that's what's happened, that is part of the checks and balances process to ensure that only that voter is voting their ballot. And there's a possibility that a signature may have changed, something as simple as signing on someone's back when you're in a hurry and it doesn't match your normal signature.
Okay.
But we are happy to look at it in detail with that voter and solve the issue.
Okay, I'm glad that she's sophisticated enough to probably jump in and recognize this pretty quickly. I think many voters may not. I know we want to have secure elections. That's essential. I just want to, and then an answer to that question. Thank you for answering it. And my second question is, there was an article in Willamette Weekly on title fraud. Multnomah County, there was an elderly gentleman who had his home stolen from him by title fraud, and I know the clerk's office is involved in this. And now that gentleman has to go to court. Like actually lost his house. Like they were changing locks, and did you know this situation?
I'm well aware.
Yeah,
and
I'm just curious what our safeguards are. How can we prevent this in Clackamas County? I don't want to see any of our people have their homes stolen from them. It's very sticky and difficult situation how title fraud happens, and I don't know if there's a lot of safeguards out there. It seems like it's something that could happen to anybody. What do we do? What is your role, and how do we prevent it, and what's our plan?
Yeah, so I was prepared to talk about elections today. I also run the recording division, and we do look at all of our records that come through and that we record, and I can send you that information after today about how we respond, but it's something that we've been working with as an association of county clerks and working closely with information from the manager there at Multnomah County.
Does it happen in our county? Have we seen it happen in Clackamas?
We do not yet have an instance of it happening here in Clackamas County.
Okay. I would love the more information on that. I just want to make sure that we're all aware and safeguarding against it. I don't know if we have to do a public notice or teach people or how to avoid it, or what cool, nifty safeguards you guys have to implement, or what the best standards are. But it was quite concerning when I read that article. I really felt for that gentleman. I think he was in his 80s too. That was what he was going to give to his children, and some fraudsters, I think out of California, like preyed on him and stole his title. I don't know if it's a signature process that they frauded or whatever, but it was quite concerning. So I know that we've got to stay ahead of that. And that's all my questions for the clerk. And thank you for answering them, even though that wasn't exactly the plan. I super appreciate the transparency and answers.
And I do share your concern, and I'll send you that information
Perfect.
today.
Thank you so much for speaking with us today on those issues.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, I know this comes up almost every election cycle over the past about someone's, they submit their ballot, the signature doesn't match, and the procedure has been, and that they've got ample time, to come in, verify their signature or identity, and then have their ballot counted. So I've known a number of people that have had their signature, called into question, so to speak, mine included. A matter of years ago. So, but I think for those who are alarmed that there might be voter fraud, this is evidence of a safeguard that makes sure that the signature is valid. So I think it restores my faith in the system with regard to that it is. And, my signature's changed, and I have a friend of mine who, because of a handicap, his signature has changed, and it was spotted. So that just shows me the system's working. Maybe it's not perfect, but it's working.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yes, I want to say I experienced the same thing with a signature change, and I was notified, and I had to go back and do it. It's not out of the ordinary to have that happen. Of course, it's happened as a sitting commissioner, as it did with you as well. So for me, it's showing us that the system's working. So I guess what I would say to people, don't go looking for zebras. It's actually a way to protect your right to vote and make sure that it's the real person doing it. So,
And I just wanted a clear understanding of process. If process has changed, I know you've been just over a year now in your position, and and so I appreciate the explanation.
So, Clerk McMullen, you cited state law, which is fine and dandy. But the problem is our local elections officials and all the activity that happens at our office. So can you explain to me, on the signature verification process, is it a human person that goes through here, or do you run it through a scan and verify the signature?
May I answer this? Yeah. Commission Chair Smith, that is a great question. We review all the signatures that come through each election on each ballot. What happens is the envelope, the reply envelope that has a signature on it, an image is taken of the back of that envelope. And then we have sworn deputized temporary election workers that review that image and also review the image of any signatures we have on file for that voter record. And it is individuals that are actually making the determination. And then that is also reviewed by full-time staff.
So it's both. Electronically, it kicks it out, and then a human eye takes a look at it, then a second set of human eyes take a look at it. Is that right?
Yes.
That is correct.
Is that the procedure?
Yeah, and
Okay.
if the ballot is challenged, the voter gets if the ballot is challenged, if the signature does not match, the voter gets a letter that same day or the next day, and then they have until 21 days after Election Day to cure that signature so that we can make sure they count their vote.
Do you have new hires at the elections office?
Right now, we have a full-time staff of 4.
How many of them are brand new?
At this point, none are brand new.
Okay, because when I filed my voter's pamphlet statement, I was a bit concerned because of the word count and some words being considered words and not words. And 325 words is a brief amount of time to state your positions and what you want to do if you're elected. And so there was a debate at the counter between 2 of your employees of the word and, A-N-D, is a word. But the use of the symbol ampersand is not a word. And they couldn't decide on that. And I found that disconcerting. So I would suggest that through your processes that we would have stability and the sameness of all situations to be applied to another one. I also had somebody tell me that their website was taken off their voter's pamphlet statement because of whatever. And she said, they counted my words 3 or 4 different times. And now it comes out, and my website is not on that. So she's challenging that. So my point is, I know this work is difficult, but procedures and processes in place will help us all have more confidence in what's happening at your office. I'm just saying that. Thank you very much. Commissioners, any objections to this moving forward? No. Seeing none? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Human Resources, item 1, approval of a board order for implementation of the final offer for AFSCME West for represented employees. Total value is $96,289. Funding is through Water Environment Services, ratepayer fees. No county general funds are involved. This is a companion piece to what you already discussed, meeting as the West Board. We also have to do it as a county board. So Evelyn Minor-Lawrence, Director of Human Resources, is back, and Shelley Yoakum from Human Resources. Go ahead, please.
Go ahead.
We're here, happy to answer any
Give a
additional
1-minute update
questions.
of what this is, please, for the board to remind them.
So we're wanting your approval to implement the final offer to West represented employees.
Okay, Commissioners, any comments or questions?
This is the departmental companion matching approval.
Yep. Seeing no objections, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Technology Services, item 1, approval of a board order to issue a purchase order for VMware Cloud Disaster Recovery Licensing Services and Support. Purchase order value is $788,417.91 for 3 years. Funding includes county allocated ARPA funds where allowed, and department cost allocations, which does include a small portion of budgeted county general funds. Caitlin Clearly is the Deputy Director of Technology Services. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. As Gary said, I'm Keelan Clary, Deputy Director for Technology Services. I'm before you with a request for approval to purchase 3 years of disaster recovery services for $788,417.91. First 2 years will be paid with ARPA funds. Year 3 would be paid with departmental cost allocations. This service will better allow us to protect critical servers needed for county departments to serve our residents by keeping a copy of those servers in the vendor's remote data centers, so that in the case of a situation where our data centers are unavailable either due to a man-made or natural disaster, we will be able to restore those services much more rapidly and improve our ability to respond to any kind of cyber event. So this would protect about 220 of our servers in remote data centers.
I like it, redundancy.
Exactly.
Protecting us, hopefully from an attack. Thank you for moving forward. Commissioner Shaw.
Yes, good morning. On this contract, should there be a cyber attack event, does this come with some sort of insurance from the provider?
What this would do is this prepays for the service and what they call a pilot light service. So basically, there are a couple of servers that remain running all the time to basically speed up that process of restoration. It does not, by itself, include cyber insurance. The county maintains a separate cyber insurance policy through its risk management services, which we are regularly reviewing to make sure that it's adequate for our needs.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing no objections, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Health, Housing, Human Services. Item 1, approval of an amendment to an intergovernmental agreement with Multnomah County for a Veteran-Directed Care Program. Amendment value is $53,763.85 for 27 months. Total agreement value is increased to $371,262.09 for 4 years and 3 months. Funding is through the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. No county general funds are involved. Rod Cook, Director of Health, Housing, Human Services. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. This agreement provides veterans-directed care services to eligible Clackamas County veterans. Its objective is to furnish case management assistance to individuals needing home nursing care that surpasses the scope of the VA's Homemaker Home Health Aid Program. Through this amendment, we're requesting 3 changes. We're going to extend the term of the agreement, updating the language to include full or partial assessments and consultation fees, and additional funds for services through June 30, 2024. Additional funding allocation will be made in upcoming amendments.
Commissioner West.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It looks like we have pretty good saturation with this program to help our veterans who need some nursing care. They get to stay in home, some independence, really great stuff. It says here we serve 44, but there's 8 still waitlisted. I'm concerned about the 8. What is needed for them to not be waitlisted? Is this a capacity of service? Is this a funding issue? Is it both? It doesn't seem like a huge number, but I'd like to have 100% saturation in those seeking the service. What are the opportunities there?
I think you answered it, capacity, because of the amount of money we have available for staffing, but I shouldn't say but. That's why there's a wait list, and I think...
Do you know what's needed to get all 8 care or off the wait list?
I'd have to go back and get the amount, if you're asking like what would cost for more FTE or something to that effect.
What would it take to,
yeah.
'cause it's not a long wait list and we want them all to get the service, or how long do they have to wait? Do they ever get it, or do they just wait for a long time? Or, what's the capacity to try to maybe fit that need for Clackamas County? It looks like there's still a little bit of a need.
Yeah, we could do some research and get that back.
Thank you.
Does this included widowed spouses are able to take advantage of veteran services?
So you said widows or spouse, so that means, I don't know, actually.
A spouse from a veteran, and the veteran is deceased. I guess I should have made myself more clear.
No, I understood
Okay.
that. I'd have to check into that. I don't know if the eligibility where it ends if the person is deceased, so I'll get that information as well.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Further questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Item 2, approval of emergency response grant funding from the Oregon Department of Human Services for the purchase of emergency preparedness kits for individuals with disabilities. Agreement value is $695,879.14 for 10 months. Funding is through the Oregon Department of Human Services. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, the state of Oregon has approved ARPA funding to purchase and distribute equipment and supplies for future emergencies among individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities. These funds may be used to purchase generators, provide emergency kits, foster communications between providers and local emergency response units, and offer training in multiple languages.
Thank you. On the use of generators, is there training to go with how to use a generator? Because it's not as easy as you think unless you have those. You know, they advertise them all the time, and I have 2. Okay, so I'm thankful my husband is mechanical because I'm not, right? I'm just curious.
I'm sure that the case managers provide any type of assistance that's needed, and you're right, generators can be complicated.
And maybe they're the little tiny ones, I don't know.
Yeah.
But whatever, I see generators and go, wow. Any other questions or comments? I see no objections.
Item 3, approval of a revenue intergovernmental agreement with CARE Oregon for the naloxone distribution project. Agreement value is $741,000 for 21 months. Funding is through CARE Oregon. No county general funds are involved.
Okay, CARE Oregon's funding will enable us to maintain and continue the distribution of naloxone kits to at-risk populations, enhancing overdose prevention capacity, reducing fatalities, and enhancing public safety. Naloxone is safe for children and pregnant women, and its distribution in the community reduces overdose deaths. Carrying it for at-risk individuals, friends, and family of opioid users can significantly reduce the time from overdose onset to life-saving care.
Commissioner West.
First question, I have a typo on mine. I don't know if everybody does. Can you reiterate what the agreement value is?
The
It's $741,000. The typo is missing a 0. We'll correct
Okay,
that.
just want to make sure the comma was okay, or,
yeah.
thank you. Do we have any mechanisms in place, Mr. Cook, when we are administering naloxone and understanding if just stop there and we're just in like the hamster wheel, or once we administer naloxone or that asset's been given to the person that's in an overdose, is there then some connection beyond that harm reduction? Is there something that maybe intervenes and stops the cycle? Or is this just naloxone giving out and we've Narcaned someone 7 times in one day? I'm just trying to understand, like, is this a pathway to a care continuum, or is this just your hope is naloxone?
A pathway to care continuum. There's many doors that the person can enter into this, but as you know, we also fund the EMTs or EMSs out there, and so they actually provide case management, and they will respond after an event and connect with that person to provide that aftercare services. If you're coming through the police departments in the LEAD program, you're going to have, again, case management is going to occur. So almost any door you would enter that they come in contact with our system, there's going to be some aftercare or somebody coming to check on you after the event.
Is this naloxone given by the community paramedic, or is this naloxone available to anywhere? Like where is it distributed to be given to the person that needs it?
I don't know the specific places where it's distributed, but it is given to both professionals, and it's given to people like myself, if I wanted it, to carry it around. If I had a family member that I knew was a user, I could have that in my home. I can carry it with me to events, those type of things. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Shaw.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Cook.
Good morning.
On your distribution of naloxone, if a organization in the county is not on your distribution list, but they want to receive it, is there a number they can call to request it, and is that going to be a free service?
So my answer, as far as I know, it is free because we get grants to buy the naloxone, and we want to distribute it to as many nonprofits and those type of agencies, schools, anybody who's interested as we can. So they should call Public Health. I don't have the number with me at this moment, but Public Health would be the place to request that.
Thank you.
Seeing no more questions and no objections, thank you.
Item 4, approval of a revenue lease agreement with Genoa Healthcare for space at the Lake Road Health Center. Agreement value is up to $46,290.84 for 3 years and 3 months. Funding through Genoa Healthcare. No county general funds are involved.
Under this agreement, Genoa Healthcare will transition from its present tenancy at the DSB across the quad here to a pharmacy space at the new Lake Road Health Center when it opens. So this is basically just transferring the lease over.
Interesting, okay. And when will that move be?
There's an unofficial, so I should be careful what I say. with
I
the
shouldn't have
cameras
asked
rolling,
that, huh?
But unofficially, people are moving over now.
Okay.
But the grand opening will likely be sometime this summer, late summer.
Thank you. Seeing no objections?
Item 5, approval of a personal services contract with Assist for Social Security Disability Insurance Recovery Services. Contract value is $450,000 for 16 months. Funding through the Metro Supportive Housing Services Measure Funds. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, Clackamas County residents with severe mental health illness, physical, medical impairments, and co-occurring substance use disorder comprise a significant number of the unhoused population. Assist, which is a nonprofit organization, has helped many clients provide non-attorney legal representation to expedite the benefits application process to secure income from Social Security disability insurance. The income, in turn, helps them pay for housing whenever their needs are met. So basically, this is we're contracting with this organization to work with that population that I mentioned so that they can receive what Social Security they can so that they can afford housing.
Questions or comments? Seeing no objections?
Item 6, approval of a local subrecipient grant agreement and declaration of restrictive covenants with Transcending Hope for the acquisition of property and startup costs for behavioral health housing. Agreement value is $950,862.70. Funding through the Oregon Health Authority. No county general funds are involved.
Yes, this request involves the acquisition and startup of property for temporary and transitional behavioral health housing for Clackamas County residents receiving services through the county programs like Aid and Assist and the Choice Model Services. Transcending Hope, a nonprofit organization, has submitted a proposal to acquire and operate a single-family homes for the program. They have entered into a purchase and sale agreement for a 3,900 square foot residence in Oregon City with program delivery expected by August 2024. So this is, we've been talking about standing up a lot of, or different types of entryways for people who are addicted or homelessness or having both, a combination of those. This is one of the smaller homes that we're standing up to service that population. When we get the recovery center online, that'll take the big chunk of people, but this is one of those ancillary services that'll be available in the community once people are ready to graduate out and those type of things.
Commissioner Scholl.
Mr. Cook, on this contract, $950K, what's the term of the contract?
This is to build, this is to purchase the property.
Just for the property?
Yeah, and rehab the facility if it's a home or whatever it is that they're purchasing.
Okay, okay.
Commissioner West.
Mr. Cook, is this similar to the single-family dwellings that we have in Villebois and Wilsonville, where we have people that have some developmentally disabled issues and they live in a community as mainstreamed as possible along, I mean, I live literally right across the street from one of them, and it's been totally fine the whole time I've lived there and been pleasant. So I'm curious if that's, I see nodding, that's a similar, is it the same group or similar model, or?
I'm not sure if it's the same group, but it's definitely the same model.
Okay. We've seen success with it in Wilsonville, and there's a number of them scattered throughout Villebois, which is a higher-end suburban neighborhood, and it's been welcomed by the community. So I'm glad to see it replicated.
Thank you.
Further questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Thank you. Next, Transportation and Development. Item 1, approval of the 2040 Planning and Development Grant Intergovernmental Agreement with Metro, accepting a grant award for the Zoning and Development Ordinance Diagnostic Report. Total award value is $263,000. Funding is through Metro 2040 Planning and Development Grant Program. No county general funds are involved. Dan Johnson, Director of Transportation and Development. Rod, you're welcome to go, but you can stay if you'd like. You're done. That's all I had on my list.
Oh, okay, I thought I had one more public. Okay.
No, please stick around, Rod. It's great. It's good
I just love being here with you all.
Exactly.
Thanks, Rod. Go ahead, Dan.
Thank you so much. Chair Smith and Commissioners, I am here this morning to look for your authorization to secure some funding from Metro. Back on August of 2023, we brought forward our long-range work program for our planning department, and in that program was what's known as the Zoning and Development Ordinance Diagnostic Report Project. That sounds really interesting. To break that down for you, in short, it's basically it's taking time and defining a project to really thoroughly look through our zoning and development ordinance to do a couple things. One, and then for the public, that is the ordinance that dictates the development and planning and land use throughout Clackamas County. And essentially, it's looking to accomplish a couple different things. One is to update it where it's inconsistent with state land use laws. Number two is to streamline and to reduce inefficiencies and development barriers that are out there, to look and see where we can be more efficient and effective for our development community. And then obstacles to employment and housing land development, where there might be some inconsistencies. Keep in mind, a lot of the adjustments to that code is that thick. It is as we want to make it smaller is our attempt, and make it easier for our public to read. So essentially, we're looking to identify this project, get this funding through Metro to pay for it, and we're here to answer any questions you might have.
Is the work going to be performed by in-house people, or are we going to contract?
This one's probably going to be contracted.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All righty. Any other questions or comments? Seeing no objections.
Thank you. All of these consent items will be on this Thursday's business meeting agenda for your final action. Next on the issues list, potential creation of a dog services charitable fund. Dan Johnson will also present this, and there is a memo in your packet.
Thank you so much. I'm not sure if you know this or not. Essentially, over a decade ago, there was a 501c3 that was established, known as the Clackamas Dogs Foundation. Essentially, this is a nonprofit corporation exclusively set up to benefit our dog services program. It's customary for the foundation to receive donations of varying amounts from public, through wills, things of that nature to support various efforts out there regarding our work with dog services. Annually, we approach the foundation to kind of look for the ability to support kind of specific areas of interest. That is not limited to, but it's basically the care and medical treatment of sheltered animals, kind of some adoption outreach programs, some improvements to shelter facilities or equipment. These aren't large-scale purchases, but they're basically things that are kind of nice to haves, the additional stuff that would help our dog services folks and the shelter services down there. Actually, I really want to highlight one additional thing, and that is a spay and neuter service for pet owners in financial need is something they provide as well. Annually, we get, there's probably about $10,000 to $40,000 that are donated. It's not big money we're talking about here, but it's very targeted, specific programs they support. Right now, the endowment that's in the foundation is about $470,000 in total. The foundation has a board, and basically county staff assist the foundation for some of the administrative burden that's there in managing this nonprofit. And what's happened is we kind of took a step back and thought to ourselves, is there a way to make this easier? I'm not sure how many of you have operated a 501c3. They're efficient and effective and great for certain things. They take time and effort, minutes, filing taxes, the financials, all those components. And so our thought was, is there a way to kind of take over the management of that and move it internally to Clackamas County proper versus having it have a separate 501c3 to make it more efficient, more effective? We approached the idea with county council, talked through it with them, finance, et cetera, and there is a way, essentially through this establishment of a fund, a charitable fund. So we approached the CDF board and basically inquired if they would consider transferring that endowment over so that we could and establish a specialized fund for that to make for more efficient management of those dollars, and not only efficient management of the 501c3, because essentially that 501c3 would go away and we wouldn't have to do any more work associated with it. The board was in support and essentially have asked us to approach you and see if you would be interested in that. If that's something that you would support, essentially we would work to then go back to develop kind of essentially a board order that would establish the fund. We would then work with CDF to have them transfer the money over into that fund. We would keep the advisory board in play, just to advise DTD on where they would, on an annual basis for our budget development, where they'd like to see those dollars go. Because the intent from the board, the CDF board, is to make sure they kind of, those investments remain consistent with what they've been in the past. And they would basically advise the director, myself, or my designee, which would be the dog services manager, on where they would like to invest on an annual basis. This sounds like a lot. It's basically the ability to operate these dollars more efficiently and effectively by bringing them internal versus having an external 501c3. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions or comments from commissioners? So I didn't know you had $470,000 in the bank for this, not that we're going to take it and spend it for anything. How great is the need for the services that you mentioned that this will pay for? For instance, we have outreach programs, improved shelter, medical and spay and neuter services for pet owners in financial need.
Yeah, they've done, oh, I'm sorry.
What is the, how is financial need defined?
I'm not sure if they have a specific component associated with that. There is definitely a percentage of the animals or dogs we receive in the shelter that are clearly there from people of lesser means or who are houseless. And the desire and the effort from that community has been to kind of really assist them and the spay and neutering of their animals for the dog population. I feel like is it Bob Barker from The Price is Right? He used to say that? Yeah. But essentially, that is their effort. They have been instrumental in some needed purchases for like equipment for our veterinarian, things of that nature that then we didn't have to purchase on our end for the general fund or other funding sources. They have been instrumental in a variety of different areas. In all honesty, I mean, this used to be a more robust board. I mean, Tom Feely from the budget committee used to be on there. The board used to be pretty significant, but it's just the interest has kind of waned. I mean, this is what we see after the impacts of the pandemic and all those things that have kind of gone through. People just don't have a lot of interest in some of this stuff anymore. And so it's a pretty small board, but this is a more efficient way to use them, to dictate the money.
I understand a three-person board for 501c3, but you're transferring that three-person board over to dog services proper, correct?
Yeah, they'd be an
And their advisory board, correct?
Correct.
What would they do?
Well, we would meet with them on an annual basis to kind of essentially get their direction. They wouldn't be a formal ABC, but we would still request that they advise us on how they'd like to spend those dollars, and I think we would share that as a part of our budget development process to say, in keeping with consistent with the investments to date, they would like to support this, and then go forward.
Okay, Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, Dan, I had a question because I just recently visited the FIDO group that every, I guess, second or third week on Saturday. I'll have to check on the times of that. And they actually give out free dog food, free cat food, paraphernalia, leashes and collars and all those kinds of things for dogs, usually serving low-income people who really need that, and looking at it as a mental health issue, that because dogs are therapeutic for people to have and own. Has this group had any contact with them in terms of how they service the area and how they, or are they kind of they've separated?
I'm probably going to mess this up, and if I do, I apologize. And if anybody associated, it was the FIDO group you talked about, right?
Yeah.
So this is dusting off some serious cobwebs here.
Okay, yeah.
Fido started with Clackamas County.
I know, that's why I was
And,
asking. Yeah.
essentially, they were, had a mission and an objective that expanded beyond the shelter and became more global in nature.
Right.
And then they essentially broke away from the county and started their own operation. And then they were replaced by this dog foundation.
Okay,
And
got
so
it.
I think
Got
that there's the same objective to some extent. I mean, to help those of lesser means and where they can, but it is a totally separate entity. I don't think there's been a lot of coordination with Fido because, again, Fido has kind of a global, county-wide focus that they have, so.
They go beyond just one, yeah.
Just
and,
beyond the
and,
shelter.
and they do, and I think one of the reasons they asked me to come visit is because they'd like to, I think, be more directly, and that was a group that Chip Salmons founded years ago, and they really do good work. And I don't know, like I said, I wanted to know what the nexus was and how it had morphed into Fido. But this is a different entity that has money specifically for the shelter operations, not for, well, 501c3 that gives to the shelter versus having that external 501c3
Correct.
providing services. Okay.
Correct. And I guess I want to expand real quick to make sure we're clear. It doesn't limit the ability for anybody to give donations in the future. They can still give those donations, but those donations go
Okay.
go directly to dog services, and then they get put in this fund as well.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Commissioner West.
Good morning.
good morning.
So it's got my wheels turning. Full bias disclosure, I love dogs.
So do I.
My lady's name is Bailey. She's a German Shorthair Pointer, and Miss Olive's in her senior years, and she's a French Bulldog. Those are my gals. Love dogs. And when Commissioner Schrader and I, early on in this whole visioning process of a recovery center, were at New Haven for
Yeah,
Hope.
They were there, yeah.
They had this amazing facility, because a lot of the population you're talking about, lower income, some struggling with homelessness or houselessness and different issues, they do have dogs, right? And they would rather live in a really difficult situation than part with their animal. But understanding this holistic care of the individual that we're dealing with and tailoring it to their needs, New Haven for Hope had this amazing opportunity. But they also have like a job. They work the kennel. They're engaged with their dog. There's this amazing outlet that's tied to the campus there. It was really clean. It was nicer than a lot of private, it was a nice facility for the people with their animals. It would be interesting to me as we continue to talk about a recovery campus, as this is becoming more and more a reality, and it's quite exciting. It'd be cool to see this department and maybe and these other entities in the county partner with us to make that part of the holistic care we're trying to offer this population. I don't know if there's anything like that, or you see a segue here potentially. And maybe after the pandemic, as people have been disillusioned and then become disconnected and isolated and not as community involved, maybe something that's inspiring like that would re-engage the board or re-engage people to help our furry friends. Because you're right, the pandemic still has lingering effects, especially with community engagement. I don't know your thoughts on that, or if you can see that being a potential. I know this is a little tangential, but I think it fits here.
It's been on our mind and our thoughts, but we've been kind of sitting back and waiting to see how that program develops. I will tell you that this year we have had a great partnership in expanding the operation and awareness of the importance of dog services with our partners over in H3S. And there's been some small funding discussions around $5,000 or $10,000 here, because a lot of their focuses in their service are with those of lesser means. And so how do we support them? And you think about that population, one of the single biggest components of those relationships with those people are their animals. And in a lot of situations, they can't get them out of our services because they don't have the ability or the funding to do that. And so it's been a great partnership there, and we look for opportunities to expand that. I couldn't speak to the specifics of, we've got dogs of all ranges. Some are really good in a bad situation, and some are really bad because of certain circumstances and their behavior. I think we have, but I'd have to educate myself, and then I can provide information to the board about programs we've done in the past. I know we've done, we have volunteers who do dog walking. That doesn't mean that volunteer can't be from recovery center component, and engaging in the environment, engaging in the work at the shelter, engaging with our furry friends that are down there. But we can put more thought to that and get back to you on it.
Awesome, thank you.
Commissioner Sherrill, did you have your light on?
No, it was on, but my question
Okay.
was answered.
Any more questions or comments regarding this item? And Gary, what is the action we take on this?
So if you're okay with this proposal, then staff will come back to you with the formal board order to shift the money. But we
Okay.
want to see if you're open to that or not.
Any objections to this moving forward for an additional look-see and proposal? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, the Office of Economic Development Workforce Development Grant. Commissioners, you asked this to be expedited. This is the grant to Clackamas Community College. Staff has done that. Dan will present as well. Go ahead, Dan.
Laura sends her apologies. She's out meeting with a business right now. Laura Edmonds, our manager for Office of Economic Development. But essentially, we met with you on March 20th and shared with you two concepts for a grant program. One was the business development grant, which the board had some questions about, and we're going to come back to the board and talk to you about that at a later date. And second was this workforce development grant. At that point in time, you asked us to advance this as quickly as possible to get that program in place. We are here today. Essentially, we've stripped away that other discussion. It's about the workforce grant that we hear with Clackamas Community College. Essentially, these are dollars that are for students enrolled in their career and technical education programs. That's up to $3,500 per student. We increase it. You've done similar work to this in the past. I want to say it was like $70,000 a year or so ago that was directed over there for these services. One thing on Attachment A kind of identifies for you kind of the scope of who's eligible for those services, also what those services pay for. I mean, essentially, it's paid internships, apprenticeships, tuitions, fees, tech tools, uniforms for hire, and childcare is also in there as well. So with your approval, we'll finalize the agreements with Clackamas Community College, and move forward with implementation of the program.
Thank you, Dan, for this. This is just really good, and I know it's very needed. I will also add, it's just not technical and workforce, it's also some medical certificates as well. I'm going to ask you a question, and you may not be able to answer it because Laura's not here. There is a cap per person of $3,500 on here. I don't remember that last time. Now, is that our cap, or does the community college determine that?
I'll have to confirm that for you, but I believe there was a cap, and it was $3,000 previously, and we upped it in discussions
Okay.
with the community college.
Okay.
But
I don't remember that in our documents last time, but that's okay. And that is acceptable to the Clackamas Community College?
Yes.
Great.
That came from the college, not us.
Oh, that came from I was wondering. Okay, thanks, Gary. And the request was to raise it from $3,000 to $3,500?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I think this is a great idea, and it's really filling some of the gaps, particularly getting people initially into these pipelines for employment. Has there been any discussion with Clackamas Workforce Partnerships to see if they have any dollars that can also help fund, scholarships of that kind, so you can leverage, up the ante a little bit with more opportunities? I do know that the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act is going to be up for reauthorization. We've been tracking that pretty rigorously at the national level, and those are federal funds that oftentimes go to our local workforce boards. So it might be interesting to have a conversation with them, because you could potentially get $3,500 from what we're pulling together, but then see if there's any other eligibilities of those funds from WIOA that we can use to even augment that, so.
We can look into that and get back to you.
Okay, that'd be,
Yep.
I think, we'll see.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I will entertain a motion.
I move we approve the workforce development grant that will provide monetary support to young and adult learners seeking accredited programs to enter the workforce.
Commissioner Schrader has moved that we approve the workforce development grant as proposed in Attachment A.
Second.
Commissioner Savas has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Would the clerk please take the roll? Poll.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schull.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank you. Next, advisory board and commission appointments. Tony, go ahead, please.
The Historic Review Board, staffed by the Planning and Zoning Division of the Department of Transportation and Development, currently has 2 openings on their board due to term expirations. Through a recruitment process, 2 applications were received. Both are recommended for appointment and are reappointments of existing members. Those recommendations are to reappoint Michael Schmier to a full term ending April 30th, 2028, and reappoint Cherie McGinnis Kennemer to a full term expiring April 30th, 2028.
Any discussion about these appointments?
Chair,
Yes?
I will move to reappoint Michael Schmier and Sherry McGinnis Kennemer to their terms.
Second.
Commissioner Savas has moved to reappoint to the Historic Review Board Michael Schmier and Sherry McGinnis Kennemer. Commissioner Schrader has seconded the motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please take the poll?
Commissioner Schull.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Next, review of your board business meeting agenda for this Thursday, April 11th, 2024 at 10 a.m. You will have 2 public hearings. The first is the review or accepting public feedback on the Community Development 2024 Action Plan. This is through H3S. It is a requirement of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Second, you will discuss a board order transferring jurisdiction to the City of Oregon City long-standing court roads from the county to Oregon City. You'll have next all the consent agenda items you discussed today and your normal course of business. If you have any questions on any item, please let me know prior to Thursday, and staff and I are happy to answer it for you. Next, Commissioner Schull would like to present to you a draft letter to the U.S. Bureau of Land Management. Go ahead, please, Commissioner.
Yes, thank you. As I mentioned a few weeks ago, the Secure Rural Schools Act has ended. We'll be getting our last payment from that, I think, this month. Now, what's left is our 16 member counties in Oregon that are members of the Association of ONC Counties. We need to now fight to preserve our natural resources that are managed by the Bureau of Land Management in our 93,000 acres. We are the 5th largest county that holds BLM-managed land. And so our best option is to work with a unified voice instead of standing alone in our dealings with Bureau of Land Management, and to appoint the Association of ONC Counties as our representative to work with BLM on the revision of the resource management plan. I think this is going to work out in our best interest. So I recommend the board approve this letter.
Comments from commissioners, discussion? Commissioner Shaw, I want to thank you for keeping up on this issue. We've been putting out multiple letters on this topic because I feel like we're really being attacked on our timberlands. And it's really important that we protect our forests for multiple use. And that concept seems to have been going away, not only with the federal government, but our governor in her desire to implement the Habitat Conservation Plan, which one mill at the coast, on the way to the coast, has already closed down because of that. And I think some of the actions taken by our State Board of Forestry and our governor are horrific in this issue.
Yeah, I agree. And our greatest resource in the state and certainly in Clackamas County is our forests. And they need to be managed in terms of wildfire prevention. They need to be managed to maintain an adequate harvest so the mills that we do have operating can continue to operate, and also to provide for recreation in our forests.
Sure.
So I do believe that the very professional Association of ONC Counties will work hard to make sure that our interests are looked after.
Good. Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I just want to thank you, Commissioner Scholl. You've been really diligent on this. I used to do it back in the day, and I'm glad you're taking it and doing it because it's a lot of meetings, a lot of work. And I hear firsthand how much the AOC folks really like working with you.
Well, thank
So,
you.
Okay.
Commissioner West.
I want to just shout out to Tim Freeman, who with AOC is quite an expert on this issue, former legislator. AOC is taking up this issue as a priority and actually trying to get with NACO, the National Association of Counties, a little bit more aligned or attuned with the specific forest land issues in Oregon that is actually different than much of the western states. So WIR is the Western Interstate Region. And right now, through NACO, they would like us to pay some costs and fees. They're not cheap as counties in Oregon. So they can have some lobbying power. Now, often NACO is awesome at lobbying and helping us bring back resources from the federal level. You learn a lot of best practices. You're able to have some influence outside of your own area. However, WIR has not quite picked up or are quite understanding the specific forestry issues and history here in Oregon, and specifically within the state up and down the Willamette Valley. And so I hope as we do this work, this letter is important, as we continue to advocate that in those spaces where we can have some help, some advocacy work within NACO and WIR, that we would, before we shell out any dollars for that type of lobbying work or whatever for our public lands, that we would make sure that they are also advocating specifically for what is important for Oregon and Oregon counties, and specifically the Willamette Valley. So that work is continuing. I know that Daniel Bethel will be there at WIR conference, and she's the president of AOC in May, along with a few other commissioners. So I know that's some of the work they'll be doing, but just to keep that on the radar is that we need something tailored and specific to Oregon counties, and hopefully we can get our those that would normally link up with us on the same page.
Thank you. Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, just want to say I appreciate Commissioner Scholl's work on this, and not just on this letter, but also on the forestry issue. I was watching just a couple, 3 weeks ago, a piece on KGW, the story about the Port of Portland, the airport, and the roof, the ceiling that they're doing, all this great
Right.
woodwork, and the history of they knew where every piece of wood came from, and the Yakama Nations tribe and others very, very involved in this, and they did a piece on the thinning and how the responsible way to restore all that. And, it struck me, it's a shame that, here in Oregon, that we're not maybe using some of our resources, let alone the fact that we have a housing crisis, and knowing that the news lately is that we have some mills that'll be shutting down, which is another unfortunate measure, and yet we have a housing crisis. And we're building all these homes and all these things, and it just seems that there's a moment for this state to shine and to do well, and economically do well, with the industry, the wood industry, lumber industry changing in a way, in so many different ways, with laminated CLT, cross-laminated timber, and all this decorative stuff that the port's doing. And I think the other piece of the article was that other states were looking at what we did here to model what's being done there. Not necessarily on the forestry side, I don't believe, but I think it's perhaps maybe that either design, but something to look into. But I just think that, coming to this state in 1979 during the recession, and shortly after the spotted owl, the whole trajectory of this industry not being revived and not being valued, yet it's such a big part of our history as well. But all this opportunity, it just seems a shame that there's, with all the technology and the ways to harvest responsibly and do it in a healthy way, instead we have the distinction of being one of the states where we suffer a lot of the forest fires and see all that go up in loss. So it's just a shame.
It is very much, and I think we all are in support of this letter. Gary, do we need a motion?
Yes, please.
I'll entertain a motion.
So moved. Support the letter.
Second.
Commissioner Savas has moved that we support the letter to the U.S. Bureau of Land Management, And who seconded?
Me.
Commissioner West second that motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please take the poll?
Commissioner Shull.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Chair Smith.
Aye, motion passes 5-0. Thank you very much, Commissioners.
Thank you. Final item today is Commissioner Communications.
Commissioner Communications, I do have a 12 o'clock appointment. Not sure how chatty we all are going to be today. Commissioner Scholl, you pass?
I will pass today and reserve my comments till Thursday.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner West.
Super busy day, I'll pass and reserve my comments.
Commissioner Savas.
Sure, why not?
And Commissioner Schrader.
I can save my comments for the Thursday business.
Okay. I am also going to reserve my comments because I've been speaking so much, my throat is starting to get raw. So. That's a 5-0. Yeah, it's a 5-0. Commissioners, thank you for your very good work today. We are adjourned.